All right, all right. Welcome on in to another action-packed edition of the Between the Hash Marks podcast, the post-Super Bowl Philadelphia Eagles Vince Lombardi Trophy Champion Extravaganza edition of the pod. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, joined by my friend, colleague, mentor, and fresh back from the French Quarter, Mike Tanier joined us. Michael, how you doing, my friend?
Eagles. Eagles. It's not hard. Not hard to spell. Not in any way hard to spell. Not just our mayor in Philadelphia, but I believe it was the president of the team. I don't know who was speaking a few minutes ago at the official press conference for the parade. Also misspelled Eagles.
I wonder if that was a gag. I wonder if Don Smolinski gagged.
It was Smolinski. Is that who that was?
It might have been. I didn't see the press conference.
I think it was. He's the president of the Eagles.
Yes.
And the mayor is next to him. And he's giving an emergency text message, if you are on Broad Street and you see trouble and you need to text the police, text them whatever it was as Ready Eagles, and that's Ready EAGLS.
Oh no!
So he can't be a gag because he's giving you wrong safety information.
Not great. Suboptimal.
Very bad. And the mayor kind of jokes around with him. Then the chief of police came on here and said, "I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try." It's that's good.
It reminds me of back in the day, listening to WIP during the Flyers playoff run, and people were struggling with the cadence of the "Let's Go Flyers" chant. That they couldn't get the cadence right of how to make it sound. It sounded like "Let's Go Rangers" the way that people were doing it, and people would call up, "What happened to this city? This proud sports city?" That the fans forgot how to spell Eagles. The mayor forgot how to spell Eagles, for crying out loud.
Well, I'll tell you something. On a Sunday night at midnight or 1 in the morning on Monday, typing up the end of my walkthrough, I couldn't spell Eagles either. But I had a reason. I had a reason for that.
Yeah, I saw the column. I saw the skeet on Blue Sky announcing the delay of the column. I understand why it was a little bit late. We're going to get into the whole experience of Super Bowl Sunday, where both of these teams go from here, and a whole lot more. But if you enjoy the podcast, if you like what we do, and Mike, I've gotten some great compliments off the air the last couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
About the podcast, which has been really fun to hear. Please go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can check it out on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975. And if you're not reading the Too Deep Zone on Substack, if you're not subscribing to Mike Tanier, you're missing some of the best football analysis out there. So be sure to go and subscribe on Substack.
Thank you. And you should be a between the hash mark subscriber now. And I'll say this: last week on this pod, both of us were musing a little bit this could be an upset. I mean, not an upset, a blowout. This could be an Eagles blowout. We were going back and forth about it a little bit.
Yes.
And then you made the bold choice to lead with it.
Yes.
You led with it. It's super blowout. I forget the exact words you were. So the receipts, ladies and gentlemen, Matt Lombardo has the receipts that no one on Media Row, no one in the media, and no one on ESPN was talking about the possibility of the Eagles blowout. Matt was, we were. But if you can read it, you can check it out in the archives. I was saying, maybe kind of sort of. You led with it.
Oh, absolutely. I made the headline. This Super Bowl has blowout potential. It was the official pick Saturday morning. I went Eagles 31-20, and it turns out that wasn't even bold enough.
Right.
The inspiration was the podcast. You and I were talking about this, and I think we both kind of agreed. Where's the matchup that favors the Chiefs? I mean, Chris Jones against the interior of the Eagles offensive line. Maybe you talked me into that, but Xavier Worthy was completely neutralized, as I predicted, by Quinyon Mitchell. You think about, the Eagles defensive line against the Chiefs, shoddy front, maybe the leakiest offensive line in football by the end of the year. There just wasn't anything that favored the Chiefs. And you and I, my friend, we could both kind of tip the cap to one another and take a victory lap because we were all over this. If you listened to the podcast last week, if you read your final column from New Orleans post muffaletta sandwich, if you read my prediction and you went to the bank and you went to the bookie and you went to DraftKings and FanDuel or Bet365, you made some money and you're welcome for that. And I just wanted to say that we were all over this matchup.
Absolutely. By the way, I came back to Philly. Went to Collingswood, went to Haddon Culinary in Collingswood, and guess what was waiting for me there? Muffaletta sandwiches by the slice.
It followed you. It followed you from the quarter.
It follows me. It follows me everywhere now. I'm being followed by a giant olive-smelling sandwich.
Look, you got to look out your office window. There might be one just like creeping up on you at the moment.
It's like being followed by a moon shadow, but not quite as romantic, or more romantic if you're like me and you really
Yes.
like sandwiches.
And you know what? I love that column, and it was reminiscent of Steve Politti, my former colleague at NJ.com. He covers the Masters every single year, and
Hmm.
he's won numerous like Sports Writer of the Year awards from the AP and all those things. The Muffaletta column belongs alongside anything Politti has written, whether it's going to the dry cleaner for who cleans the green jackets,
Yeah.
whether it's discovering, how they make the sand in the bunkers, and the dude who got arrested for trying to take some home and was banned for life from Augusta, going to find the grandson of the creator of the Muffaletta and introducing it to an entire, subsect of readers, put it in the Hall of Fame.
Politi's ears must be burning. We were on the media shuttle, and you can probably guess the individuals who were talking about, like, man, we wish we could do this like Politi. We wish we could do these type of things like Politi. He went ice fishing in
Yes,
Minneapolis
I remember.
at Super Bowl. Right? So all of us are in the grind, and he's ice fishing. Which, come to think of it, it was like 5 degrees. Maybe the grind
Was.
was better, but he created magic then. You talk about legendary green jacket stories and things like that. His ears have to be burning right now.
Absolutely. And, just getting into the game for a little bit here, Mike, what stood out the most to you? Because it's easy to say the Eagles' defensive dominance, but there were so many things that went right for the Eagles and just never got going. And when they did, went off the rails for Kansas City.
It was, I mean, the defensive dominance, part of that is some of the people who made plays. So we got Josh Sweat, he's been a starter on this team for years, so I'm not going to talk about him. Jalex Hunt
Yeah.
making plays. Avante Maddox. And you remember like this sort of long up and down career as this like important backup and then guy who getting it done. Avante Maddox is out there making fourth down plays. Jahan Dotson appears out of witness relocation and makes a spectacular catch and then makes another catch along the way. I'm starting to lose track of like the tertiary guys who had to come in and be successful for the Eagles, and they were. Tyler Steen had to come off the bench
Yeah.
at guard for a while and play a couple series at guard, and I don't know if it was if he really did phenomenally, but like it didn't impact the team negatively. So many players like that you wouldn't. Milton Williams.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Made himself a lot of money in that game.
Right,
Two
yeah,
and
because
a
he's
half
going
sacks. Yeah, he made himself some money going into free agency.
right. That like this is such a team effort, such a top to bottom effort that it really lives on. And the Super Bowl that the Eagles won against the Patriots had a little bit of that too, where Corey Clement and Mac Hollins, before people knew who Mac Hollins were making plays, and Derek Barnett made a play in that game, and it speaks to the depth of the team and the depth of the accomplishment. What stood out for you?
It's two things for me. One really big picture, and one leaning into that defensive dominance a little bit. They just harassed Patrick Mahomes all night long. What was it? 6 sacks and like 9 quarterback hits, just something outrageous. And you could see
Yeah.
the body language just get completely zapped
Yes.
very early on, not only from Mahomes, but the entire team, right? You could just tell that the Chiefs didn't have it when he just faced that barrage of pressure all night long. Mike, they didn't blitz in the first half. I'm not sure that they blitzed all game, and they still had a pressure rate north of 46. So that means they were getting home, and they were relentlessly harassing Patrick Mahomes with their front four. And when you
Hmm.
can do things like that, when you can do that and you can drop 7 into coverage, it's lights out. It's ball game, it's blowout, it's game over.
Officially, they did not rush more than 4 defenders the entire game. There was one very clear instance where Nolan Smith drops into coverage and Zach Bond rushes, so that would be a blitz officially in like a playbook. Um, One play that stood out that I've been talking about a lot. It was 2nd and 14, and the Chiefs keep max protect in. So their 5 offensive linemen and Kelsey and Pacheco are all in max protect, and Kelsey and Pacheco are trying to block Sweat. And I think it's Thuney has Jalex Hunt, a rookie, a mid-round rookie on the other side. And the Eagles get a sack. The Eagles get just absolutely collapse this pocket. Sweat takes care of both of these guys, neither of whom really add up to one really good blocker. And they get the sack in that game. When you're 7 against 4, it's not happening. The next play after that, Mahomes escapes the pocket a little early, like a little skittish, and throws the pick six to Jean.
Yeah.
So you're seeing this like this is non-tenable. This is like there's no we can scheme our way out of this problem. You're losing 7 guys against 4, and you're losing. You're going to lose.
Yeah, the column on Monday morning, I wrote that might go down as the greatest defensive series in Philadelphia Eagles history. I mean,
That's
you
neat.
talk about the Alex Hunt, the Sweat sack, and then
Mhm.
the Cooper DeJean pick six in the Super Bowl to go up, I believe, what was it, 17 to
That was
nothing at that
17.
point?
That's yes.
So basically put the game out of reach in the Super Bowl. We could talk about individual moments and plays in franchise history, but I don't know that you can take a series on defense since 1933, since the Eagles
Right.
were founded, and say it was more impactful and more dominant than that.
No idea. Maybe something happened with Big Nerick in
Right.
1960. Great grandpa can tell us about. I would be willing to listen. But yeah, and that's kind of a turning point. Like the turning point in that game to a degree was like the kickoff or whatever. But the Eagles' offense is struggling early. They get a turnover early. When it's 10-0, you are sitting there thinking, okay, Mahomes makes one play. It's 10-7, and the Bills know how that feels, and the Ravens know how, and the Texans know how that feels. We've seen that story play. When it becomes 17-0 after that series, you're like, it's going it's out of the range of 2 miracle plays now. Now it's going to require 8 miracle plays, and this team is not going to have 8 miracle plays. By the way, in the first half, I think Aaron Schatz told me the first half defensively, it was the best Super Bowl defensive performance ever, better
Wow.
than the 1985 Bears. When you pulled out to the third quarter, the Bears, 1985 Bears, slip past the Eagles, and then because the fourth quarter the Eagles take off the gas, they fall below the Bears. That Ravens team that that intercepted Kerry Collins 3,000 times, and the Buccaneers team that knew the Raiders playbook because they could
Yes.
change the plays. And like, well, the Eagles took their feet off the gas. I'm okay being on the same list with those teams, right?
Right. To me, that makes it even more impressive because
Yeah.
those other teams, best of my knowledge, the Bears didn't rest their starters in 85. They didn't have the opportunity
I
to.
think they might have. I don't know, but yeah.
I'd have to go back and look. But if the Eagles are ranked that high, playing 3 quarters of quote unquote competitive football,
Mhm.
that puts it in the pantheon for me, maybe near the top of the pantheon. But the other big story that my big takeaway was, and you kind of alluded to it, it was the unheralded players who
Yeah.
really jumped into the forefront of how this game was won. I decided going into the game, I thought there were 6 future Hall of Famers on the field, maybe 7 if you start talking about Steve Spagnuolo, but there's only one assistant coach in the Hall of Fame. So as much as
Yeah.
Spagnuolo, he had the resume certainly going into Sunday, maybe still after that, it's going to be a tough haul. But you start breaking down the performances by each of those 6 players.
Mhm.
Lane Johnson might have punched his ticket to Canton because he was just
Right.
phenomenal, and an
Mhm.
all-time performance by Lane. Saquon, this is where we get a
Oh,
little bit silly, and
just
I
for
say
Saquon.
that
Saquon went from not being anyone who would ever get into the Hall of Fame this season to somebody who has now a good, strong base of a Hall of Fame case.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but I'll get a little bit silly and say
Right.
that because the Chiefs sold out so hard to stop Saquon Barkley, that maybe you make an argument that he should have gotten MVP votes because it opened up everything else. It opened
Yeah.
up Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, but it's just Chris Jones got
Yeah.
banged up before that non-factor.
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes, it's a burn the tape game for him. It's also a game that's going to haunt him personally for a decade.
Mhm.
Creed Humphrey, not the entire interior line wasn't great.
No,
I
no,
haven't
no.
a chance to look through the film yet, but you just look at the guys that went into that and you're thinking they could be Hall of Famers one day.
Mhm.
Super Bowl Sunday defines legacies.
Yeah.
It just didn't for these guys.
Right. Now, some of them, their legacies are already set. So it's
For
like that.
sure. And Kelsey, Travis Kelsey, the
And
bad.
Kelsey, right, right. It's
Yeah.
like he's a Hall of Famer. Chris Jones is going to be a Hall of Famer and things like that. But that sort of magic sparkle that puts the extra shine on it and says, "Well, we're just gonna carry you into Canton on a pillow." Some of them lost the opportunity to get that, and yeah, this is a legacy changer for Barkley. The whole season is a legacy changer for Barkley. And Lane Johnson, this sort of like when we have to make a case for Lane Johnson, 2 teams where he's leader on the great offensive line, Super Bowl. Now he's got a running back for 2,000 yards and a Super Bowl when we talk about Lane Johnson and putting him and Kelsey both in the Hall of Fame on that line. I think the case is there. I'll say this about the MVP. If you're not giving it to Hurts, it absolutely had to go to Josh Sweat.
Yes.
Two, 2.5 sacks. The interception by Bond was caused by Sweat slamming Thuney into Mahomes. There was another, I think Sweat has a pressure on the DeJean pick six. If not, he's got a pressure where something else dumb happens. It's the best single defensive performance. Now, or I say it reminded me of Justin Tuck against Tom Brady, where I believe one game he had 2.5 sacks and a safety, or
Yes.
forced fumble and a safety. That level of dominance, where again, 20 years later, Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame, that's not the case. You remember this is the guy who did the thing in that game.
Right, absolutely. And Sweat came out and said that he thought he should have been
Yeah,
the Super Bowl MVP, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, he
yeah.
played his ass off. He was disruptive as you can be at any point in a Super Bowl on that stage against that quarterback.
Hmm.
But you know, at the end of the day, this was Jalen Hurts' award from start to finish. I mean, it just goes out there, and he was workmanlike in the first half when he had to be. The first drive, getting the ball back at the start of the third quarter after the Chiefs go 3-and-out, and he just they take 6 minutes and 43 seconds off the clock, and you start to think, okay, after the Bond pick interception happens at the end of the first half, and they don't score at the
Yeah.
start of the third quarter, the game was over right then and there. And then Hurts, I know they didn't score a touchdown on that first possession, but it
Yes.
took nearly 7 minutes off of the
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes magic meter that
Yeah. Right. Right.
you
Right.
lessened the chance significantly of that fourth quarter nightmare from an Eagles perspective and heroics from Mahomes for the Chiefs.
It's like the video game character who has like the super scion meter, and when it reaches a certain thing, you can push the button, and he can do the magical attack that murders you.
Yes.
He kept going down and down and down. He's losing mana as it goes, and that was key because again, and I wrote about it. It's like I have severe anxiety issues. It's halftime. I'm trying to watch Kendrick Lamar. I'm sitting with my wife, and it's like I'm a nervous wreck because if the Eagles lose this game now, they will be the biggest comeback losers in history, and I don't think the city's civic self-esteem or my self-esteem can handle this. So Eagles go out and they force that 3-and-out, and then this slow, methodical drive, and Hurts is making those plays, and because Barkley is pretty much contained for much of it, and it whittles all the way down to field goal range, and they kick the field goal, and then I look up, yeah, there's 7 minutes and 48 seconds left. Like that's it. That's it. That clock killing was as valuable as the points. And you wrote about it in your Monday column. Is like the redemption of Jalen Hurts after this weird anti-Hurts thing, both in the Philly community and like in the community of like quarterback experts, for him to come out and answer those critics like this.
Yeah, and I've never understood that criticism because, you know, I don't know that he's as prolific a passer as Joe Burrow. I
Right.
don't know that he's as mobile as Patrick Mahomes. I don't know that he has that skill set to be a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league,
Hmm.
but the guy just wins, and his
Right.
teammates run through brick walls for him. And anytime
Right.
that you talk to Jalen Hurts or hear him in press conferences, I've long had this belief that he has that Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tiger Woods mentality that he's
Mhm.
going to do what it takes to level his game up little
Yeah.
by little every single year. And he has the motivation to do it, goes out and does the work. And you look at it now, okay, 2 Super Bowls in his first 4 seasons as a starter. He's been to the playoffs the last 3 years. He has the
Every year.
Lombardi trophy. He
Yes.
has a Super Bowl ring on his finger.
Mhm.
And it's like, what more can you ask for from this guy? And he absolutely now belongs in that conversation of the top 5 to 8 quarterbacks in the sport because of
Yeah.
what he's accomplished
Yeah.
and the fact that he's only 26 years old.
He has a signature play that only he runs, that now for 3 years only he runs, that Josh Allen can't seem to run. I know they were running it, the Bills were, but they didn't when it mattered. So you've got this thing, and I go back to, and because you'll hear well, there's this limitation and that limitation. Does he get to his second read? And I said it, I think last week to you. I said it to all people around New Orleans. When he connects with Devontae Smith, and there was an early third down in that game where it's a spot throw to the sidelines, and Smith kind of appears and catches it. That level of elite timing,
Yeah.
I think that particular skill is on the same line as Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison had.
Wow.
I'm going
Yeah.
to put it to a place, and it's not that different, or it's like one rung below that. It's one rung below the Mahomes Kelsey thing. They have that kind of chemistry that they've honed over the course of years. That's special. That takes a lot of work. That compensates, and it kind of replaces some of the other skills in his game. And it's one of the reasons the Eagles can do this. One of the reasons why they struggle when Devontae Smith wasn't out there for a week or two last season. But if you rank quarterbacks, if that's the thing you do, and you're not looking at, well, what's happened in the postseason.
Right.
what happens in these meaningful games. You're doing it wrong. You're missing the point. You don't understand what you're doing. You're busy watching Tuesday afternoon 5-yard passes, and you're missing touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
And he was the MVP in the MVP race until about week 10 or 11 last year before the
Yes.
season came off the rails.
Yes.
And with the soup coming off of the tailwinds of a Super Bowl appearance
Yes.
the prior season. And he
Yes.
outplayed Patrick Mahomes for much of that game. He had the costly fumble, but you know what I'm saying here, that he belongs in that conversation of the upper echelon quarterbacks. And, you know, the Super Bowl in my house was a little bit chaotic. I had, you know, my divorced parents were in the house. My
God.
sister was in the house. The kids are loving it. They're running around. The food, we're still eating the leftover food. I had buffalo chicken dip for lunch today. So, you know, you talk
Great.
about like you sitting there, you know, worried that I'm going to have to come in like Clarence to your George Bailey at halftime with the Eagles, you know, that big lead. I'm at halftime trying to scratch out the beginning of the column, and thank goodness it was a blowout, because I could at least start to formulate some thoughts in my head and pray that, unlike the 28-3 Super Bowl, when I had a column written that needed to be deleted and started over in the final 47 seconds of the game, needing to file shortly thereafter, I could at least sit down and write a little bit.
What did Sophie think of the game?
She was all in. She was all in. She made like, before halftime, she made like an Eagles Super Bowl banner to hang in front of the TV. She's star of the week. Her classroom has star of the week. They like highlight one of the kids in the class for a week and let them bring in like show and tell things and fun stuff like that. So she came off the Super Bowl and go into star of the week for her class. So she had a lot of fun. Luca, you know, he actually learned to spell Eagles last week. My wife like got him in
Run for mayor.
Yeah, run for mayor. Run for mayor, Luca.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I had to run something up to Mike at Rowan, and like, you know how you can tell when someone's really hungover.
Oh, well,
He looked at me and
that morning.
He looked at me and I looked at him, and it was like, yeah. And he's like, some of the guys, he didn't do it. Some of the guys actually went from Glassboro into Philly, and it's like,
Oh,
well,
wow.
what was the report like? It was kind of like the Warriors.
Yeah.
Clink, 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 clinks. But that's great. That's great. It's cool to be able to spend do that kind of thing with your family. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you and I both had the experience a couple of years ago. You again this week, covering Super Bowl week, flying home on Friday, and you know your column on Monday morning. I read it every week, but the experience of living through Super Bowl through your eyes. It was a phenomenal read. Anybody who cares about football or is an Eagles fan should go check it out. It was great. I enjoyed it. It was a scene setter of all scene setters.
I was distracted. There's an exterminator next door, so give me a moment. Thank you very much. I love being able to share some of those stories. And you and I are in the same boat. Like, now we can talk about the Super Bowl a little bit afterwards. We can joke about the parade, whatever. It's hard to contextualize the actual Super Bowl and write a game story that anyone in the world really gives two poops about. We all watch the game. We all form our opinions. You as a listener, you as a fan, can come away with that game with the exact same opinions we have. So you either are Peter King and you can go meet and have a cup of I guess cocoa with Andy Reid for an hour and get secret information, or you're just like the rest of us. So you found the right tone with the Jalen Hurts thing, and I did what I did, and also was not 100% sober for portions of it.
Yeah, I noticed. I saw what was the cocktail at the bar in the Skeet? What was the cocktail? Do you remember?
Just a Crown Royal on the rocks.
Okay.
Just a Crown Royal on the rocks, and then whatever the double nickel brewery here. My little town here, you don't want to get too complicated with the cocktails at the joint, especially when the place was absolutely just everybody was wasted. Everybody was wasted. A guy walks up to me. A couple people walk up. They know me as neighbors. They're the neighbors, you know. Or I was a teacher years ago. I taught their kid. I know you. You're that sports writer. Like, I am. Like, I follow you. It's like, oh, do you follow me at my Substack or from Bleacher Report? No, I follow you from. Dude, what's your name? What's your name? And I was just going to say Sal Palantonio.
Oh, Jesus.
But I didn't. So, but that was the level. And I wanted to try to talk to him just for a minute about the game, but he just got distracted and just started wandering off. There was another dude.
People tend to when they're so happy like that. You know what I mean? Like the happy drunk just wanders to the next guy to interact with.
Right, right. It was just gonna be, well, what do you think? Go Birds. What do you think of the game? Anything like that. And he was distracted. There was like another guy at the pool table with like his thick beard just going like this to like Thunderstruck, doing the mummer strut to AC/DC's Thunderstruck, which takes a little bit of inebriation to like get that to work from a game.
I got to give a tip of the cap to Sophia's bus driver. He had the foresight on Friday to
Uh-huh.
tell the kids that there would be a substitute bus driver
That's
on
amazing.
Monday because he was having an Eagles party.
And and that's great. And ladies and gentlemen, in general in life, if you think you're going to be out on Super Bowl Monday, always call out ahead. Always plan your substitute. I have some teacher friends who put their personal days in. I think after the Rams victory, it's like we're just going to put the personal day in.
Just in
Get-
case.
huh?
Just in case.
Just in case, get it organized, get it settled. And then, when you're celebrating, you can take pictures of yourself on Bourbon Street or South Street or whatever, and you didn't leave anybody in the lurch. And that's the 2008 teacher, Mike Tanier, who remembers the Phillies parade
Yes.
and I had to sub for like 20 of my friends, and I had classrooms full of, each class only had like 5 kids because most of the kids were out partying too. But like
At the parade.
at the parade, but it's like if you had a sub, I wouldn't be taking care of your kids right now, buddy. I still remember Sebastian. So just keep that in mind.
Mike's teaching classes in the gymnasium to get everybody in one place. All the other teachers are on Broad Street and climbing up greased poles.
Exactly. And to be fair, by teaching, I meant putting on the overhead and watching the parade and joking around. But you know who's in the school at that point? The sports haters.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be like, you are welcome to be a sports hater. I play Dungeons and Dragons, everything else like that. But like some of them want to read quietly, and some of them are sitting there like, what is this? Sports ball. It's like, let us enjoy something. Let us enjoy something. When Lollapalooza comes, you
Put the AirPods on and listen to whatever you listen to. Give us our moment.
give us a moment. Give us our moment. Absolutely.
And I think that the Eagles, I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I think the Eagles have a lot more moments like this coming up in the next couple of years. And I'm going to go so far as to say you and I'll be there this time. We will be in Los Angeles in February of 2027.
Yes.
And we'll be wondering if the Eagles are going to be the first team to win 3 in a row, because you just start to look at this thing, right? Jalen Hurts, 26 years old. Saquon Barkley, 28 years old. Devonta Smith, 26 years old. A.J. Brown, 27 years old. Jordan Mailata, 27 years old. They're all under contract for at least the next 2 seasons. And other than Saquon Barkley, all at least 3 to 5 more years down the line. Jalen Carter, 23. Nolan Smith, 24. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, 22 and 23 on their rookie deals. And is there anybody in the league outside of maybe Brad Holmes and maybe Adam Peters and maybe Brett Veach, who you think about as being a better drafter at the positions that matter than Howie Roseman to go and draft an offensive tackle to replace Lane Johnson, to go and get the safety who's going to ultimately replace CJ Gardner-Johnson? This just feels, and maybe it's getting ahead of myself in the immediacy of watching how that game played out, but it feels like the Eagles, this was their launching pad moment into something that could wind up being historic.
I hope so. And we can sit here and we can be skeptical and list people like Bond who are probably gone.
Yeah.
And they will be hard to replace. But the Eagles are in position to do this. And when you look around the NFC in particular, you can see the powerhouses. We all see the Commanders. They're there. They're going to be an issue. Do not sell me any team in the NFC South because they're a joke. The 49ers are done. Goodbye. It was nice knowing you. The Rams are starting to face some.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm the meme of the guy fading away is what I was doing.
Fading away. Yes.
The Lions will be back.
Lions will be back. Yeah.
Detroit's not going to have 47 different guys injured through the course of a year again.
Right. Yeah. So you got this 3-team list. Just like when you go to the AFC, it's the 3-team list. Eagles are on that list. They've got a ton of guys under contract. They've got fewer question marks than anyone else. Absolutely, they could be back.
Right. And I just want to dispel this notion that I've heard this week, Mike, about like this being the end of the Chiefs dynasty. I don't see it.
No.
Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. Whatever happened on Sunday, he's still Patrick Mahomes. That didn't change. And it's not like Brett Veach and Andy Reid didn't watch that happen and they're going to think, oh, you know what? Let's go get a running back or let's go get a corner. They
Yeah.
know they need to draft and sign about 6 or 7 offensive linemen. It has to happen. They have to re-sign Trey Smith. That's
Mhm.
going to, take some effort, but they have $11.5 million in cap space. They know what they need. Similar to Roseman, Brett Veach is a perennial executive of the year, front runner and candidate, great drafter, great at restocking the cupboard. They already have an heir apparent and waiting in Noah Gray when it comes
Yep.
to Travis Kelce and his ultimate departure. Don't start dancing on the Chiefs' grave just yet, because even in the AFC playoffs, the Buffalo Bills wilted when it mattered most.
Mhm.
Lamar, for as great as he was all year, probably should have won the MVP in the
Mhm.
big moment. Mark Andrews has the big drop, and don't forget about the turnovers that happened in that game, the interception and the fumble from Lamar. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs. I don't want to dance on any graves, and I don't want to hear that we're going to be shoveling dirt on the headstone that it's over and done with, because it's just
No, no, that's wishful thinking for Chiefs haters. They probably do have to adjust a little bit. Mahomes is 30. He's
yeah.
going to be here. He's going to be great for a while. And some of these things, we talk about them here. They have to breathe a little bit. Everyone has to take a deep breath. And when it's time to be analytical and you look at the Chiefs and then you look at the Bills free agent situation and things like that, you realize again, yeah, the big 3 or 4 teams are still there in the AFC. We know who they are in the NFC. We'll learn in the days and weeks to come who can rise up or who's going to be taken apart by free agency. Chiefs are not going to be one of those teams.
No, not going to be one of those teams. And the Bengals will be back. The Broncos are charging down the rails like a jail on rails. Like, the
Something,
Broncos are
yeah.
in the mix. It's just a matter of it's going to be tough to get back. It always is. It's going to be tough for the Eagles to get back, because everything went right for them this year for the most part, right? Saquon Barkley didn't have any serious injuries.
Right.
AJ Brown came back from when he was banged up. Jalen Hurts was fully healthy until the playoffs, and they still survived to get through that. It's tough to get back, but I think the Eagles are as well positioned as anybody we've seen outside of Kansas City to make that kind of a run next year.
That's true. And the NFL is often injury ball.
Yeah.
And you stay healthy, and the Eagles did stay very healthy this year, one. And then if you don't stay healthy, who's on your bench? And that's where the Eagles have done a good job, both through salary cap attrition and when they've had other people step up, they've had those people to step up.
Absolutely. And, you think about around the league, what's one thing that you think might pop off this offseason? Give me an offseason bold prediction.
I don't have any bold predictions right now. I'm still hungover. I didn't look at, nor did I look at our outline that you sent in any way. You give me yours.
Yeah, I think that Myles Garrett is back and might wind up sitting. I just can't see. I just
Kidding?
cannot see the Browns acquiescing.
Wow.
I just don't see it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's that's nuclear. Because that's like the most self-defeating, because like this guy don't want to play. You need picks. You need draft picks right now. He can
Yeah.
be turned into draft picks. He could probably be turned into a first rounder. He is that level of play, almost certainly. And they're going to cut off their nose to spite their face.
Is it just posturing when Andrew Barry comes out at Mobile and says, "Under no circumstances am I trading Garrett"? Is it posturing?
Maybe. I don't know, but that is a buckle up one. That is a buckle up one. I know you just dropped one today about things that the Titans should do.
Yeah, it's the first of the off-season series. I'm going to make the valiant effort at checking in on all 32 teams across the league and the 3 moves that they need to make this offseason to turn things around.
Mhm.
Going by the draft order, so we're starting not
Oh,
great, a lot of material, but not great situations.
right.
The Tennessee Titans, the 3 things they need to do. You can check it out at between the hash marks on Substack.
Give me
And
one.
the first bold check mark,
Mhm.
I think they got to go sign Sam Darnold.
Yeah, that's fine. That's reasonable.
Yeah, the sign Sam Darnold, and
Yeah.
then trade back somewhere in the top 5 or top 10. Get yourself a first round pick next year, so you'll have 2 first rounders. It's going to be a deeper quarterback class from people that I've spoken to, or at least a higher ceiling quarterback class than what we have this year. If
Mhm.
you have 2 first round picks next year and you trade back to like number 4 and you draft an elite corner or Abdul Carter or the top offensive tackle, Okay, get Darnold, let him be the crash dummy for 2 years. Maybe you win some games on the fly, but 2 first-round picks in one draft and maybe a future first-round pick, that gets you right in the mix to be in the top 5 again to get your quarterback next year.
I do get the impression that just grabbing Cam Ward is just spitting down a well for the
Yeah,
Titans. I mean, if they do it, they do it. And it's like, well, you got the number one quarterback on the board, and that's how we do these things. And you failed to do anything with Levis, and you failed to do anything. Maybe there was never anything to be had with the lad from Liberty, Willis, a couple of years ago. But you're not doing this. You're not in a good position to do this. Maybe and yeah, here is a functional bridge quarterback who won't cost that much.
right. And might be better than a bridge in that division. It's
Yeah.
wide open. You could win on the fly. And the problem is, and I wrote this in the story, you kind of touched on it. If you draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders at number 1 and put him behind
That line.
that offensive line,
Right.
you could Daniel Jones him. There's a risk of Daniel Jonesing a number 1 overall pick in the draft. And if your infrastructure isn't ready, this is how you torpedo a kid's future and you just keep spinning your wheels.
Right. And that's just a bad. I mean, a lot of times, every team that picks first overall is bad. That team's very bad on offense, just very poorly put together. Maybe something a little outside the box, including an affordable quarterback who, again, there are people listening. There are friends we have 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. Sam Darnold, $200 million quarterback. JJ McCarthy to the Jets for a first round pick.
People listening, Mike, I disavowed myself from that opinion.
I wasn't calling you out. I forgot who said what. We all said I'm writing the nonsense index.
Okay.
Although I've
Love
rechristened
it.
it the Bolt index.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm allowed to curse now, if not on this site, but on Substack. And I was like, well, I wrote one last year, and my lead last year was, oh, this hoopla about Saquon Barkley. Oh, come the hell on. Who do we really think this guy is? They're like paragraph after paragraph of like, you stupid Philistines, you idiots who think Saquon Barkley is going to make a difference for anybody. He's going to sign with the Jaguars for 2 years. So we all have our moments.
Yes.
We all have our shame.
We all wind up in the freezing cold takes almanac for one thing or another in our career.
Oh my God. Oh goodness. Are we done?
So we touched on the series on Between the Hash Marks, the 3 things every team has to do this offseason. Going to have some draft stuff, got some free agency previews, but what's coming up on the Two Deep Zone in the days, weeks, and months ahead?
And that's it. We got the bull snot index coming up, and we got a mailbag coming up. And I'm starting to gear things up. We'll be at the scouting combine. It's going to be called the Two Deep 96.
I can't wait.
It's going to be 3 rounds of draft analysis, and it's not going to be talking about somebody's foot frequency or shoulder torsion or things like that. We will mention scouting points, of course, but it's going to be for people who don't like draft coverage, who think draft coverage is a bunch of weirdos spitting jargon at each other. This is different. I've been doing it for years, but I'm going to hone it, crystallize it this year. So when you read about Abdul Carter, you're going to feel like you are informed and entertained and interested in Abdul Carter.
I can't wait. I'm excited for the Two Deep Zone 96. Can't wait to read it. Happy anniversary / birthday to the Two Deep Zone. The 1-year anniversary Between the Hash Marks is coming up at the end of this month, but I started celebrating a little bit early with the Balvenie 14-year age scotch after the Super Bowl. I figured it was fitting, ending the first season, approaching the first anniversary, to sip some of the fine scotch that my father gifted me for Christmas this year. But I'm excited, and I know I speak for you on this, Mike. 1 year in the books for Two Deep Zone. We can't express enough gratitude to all of the readers, all of the subscribers, everybody who listens to the podcast, follows us on social, and then clicks a link to read the article. None of this is possible without you guys. And Mike really bet on himself. I jumped into the foray to hopefully one day turn it into a big bet on myself, but we're both building something here, and it's not possible without everybody who's reading and listening and watching.
Yeah, you are here listening at this point. Watching at this point, because you're somebody who recognizes that you need the independent voices, okay? And you would rather hear Matt and me or Aaron Schatz or people who have independent voices than go to these SEO farms and see something that was thrown at you like a cheap burger's thrown at you at like the worst hamburger stand in the world. And that means a lot to us. It makes what we do possible. And I can't thank you guys enough. Again, I was able to go to Bourbon Street. I was actually able to go to the French Quarter because of the support of listeners, readers, followers, subscribers like you. Matt's also being able to do some things his own way. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'm dragging your ass to Santa Clara next year because it's my goal, my mission to be at the Super Bowl next year. And I ain't going to San Francisco, Santa Clara alone.
You might have to drag my ass on that one because we know what it's like to cover a Super Bowl there.
It's
Right. We don't have to go into the inside baseball on this, but it's like, oh, let me get my walking shoes and my Dramamine for the shuttle up and down the freeway. So yeah.
Yeah, but big goals ahead for both of us. As far as the podcast goes, if you enjoy it, please leave us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. They really do help grow the show, boost us up in the algorithm, make it easier for us to find. Subscribe to Mike Tanier's Two Deep Zone on Substack. Follow him on Blue Sky and Threads. Follow me on Blue Sky and Threads as well. Subscribe to Between the Hash Marks on Substack. Mike, in the off season, we're going to do once every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So every other Tuesday, you'll be
Yeah.
hearing from us, and you can expect us to drop in your inbox and your podcast feeds. But what a great first year of the pod. And if
Yeah.
you've noticed, I've been sipping the Cafe Du Monde coffee straight from the French Quarter. The package arrived on Monday afternoon from Mike Tanier. So thank you for that, my friend. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome. I didn't get my wife anything.
Oh,
So you're extremely blessed in that respect.
wow, I feel special. Mike, this has been so much fun. Talk to you in a couple weeks.
You too. Take care, everyone.